I'm Justin Snyder.
And I'm Stephanie Greenwood Snyder.
We're just an average, everyday couple.
But over the years, we've seen the incredible importance of building community together.
We'll be talking with friends and experts about their stories and experiences to help us learn and grow.
We don't want to just survive through life.
We want to intentionally thrive.
This is The Intentional Thriver.
Welcome back to another episode of The Intentional Thriver, the podcast where we look at how to intentionally thrive, not just survive in life.
And today we have two very special longtime friends, the Edwards, Breighana, and Jackson. Thank you so much for being here. How are you guys doing?
Doing awesome. Want to be with you guys.
Got the boys down.
Yes, both boys are asleep. It's a good night.
It's a good night.
Nice.
Yes. Awesome. Well, those of you who listen to our podcast, we start by saying things that we appreciate and love about our guests. And it is so easy to talk all day about the Edwards. But I want to bring up something that came first to mind.
Okay.
And that was Jackson's first interaction with him. Jackson, thank you for teaching me that men with long hair can be wonderful, kind, genuine, Christ-following people, because we were taught that was not the case.
Wow. Oh, yeah. Let's go. Come on. That's you.
But in all seriousness, you guys showed us what genuine people can be like. And you were some of our first friends at changing churches. And we talk about that on our podcast, coming out of a very unhealthy church and seeing what a true Christ-following, Christ-honoring church can be like. And you guys just amplified that so well over the years.
Yeah.
And Breighana, I just love your leadership, and you're a servant, and you're kind, and you're so incredibly good with your kids. Like, the patience is just unreal. I'm sure you don't feel it all the time, but as an outsider looking in, it's like, wow.
Especially your patience with Jackson.
I received that.
God bless you.
Let's jump right into it and talk a little bit about your guys' background and who you are and how you have come onto this podcast.
Because ultimately that is like the crux of making it.
It is where you are right
being
now.
on this podcast.
Yeah. No, when I was in therapy, that's how my counselor would start off questions. He'd be like, so how are you coming in today? So I feel like that's great.
I love that. How are you guys coming in today?
Grew up in Grant, Florida. And homeschool family, one of six.
That's right.
If you didn't have a homeschool van with a bunch of kids pouring out, you were not cool in our church. So I went to Bethune-Cookman University in Daytona Beach for nursing, and I practiced nursing for 8 years, and actually been in full-time ministry as a youth pastor for the last 8 years as well.
Just down the road from Jackson, I grew up in Melbourne, Florida, and I didn't grow up in a homeschool family. I was very public schooled. So
sketchy.
It's
so
amazing.
You were actually cool.
Gotcha.
We don't know what that's like.
No.
Let's just say God is good, because I've seen some things, been through some things, as many people have. But I've been working in women's ministry at our church for about 9 years now. And part of that has been with teens and young adults, and it's kind of transitioned more into, moms and older women now. So it's funny to see how God has used me in different seasons and changed that. So it's been good.
That's awesome.
So, again, we're going to talk about friendship, and we're specifically going to talk about like friendship as an adult and building friendships as an adult. And, I feel like there's a lot of fear involved with that. There's a lot of like fear of rejection, a lot of fear of, man, is this person going to accept me for who I am? I not really that different, honestly, from making friends, as a teenager or whatever it may be. But like in your guys' opinion and experience, like, why do you feel like it is so difficult and so hard to build friendships, make friendships, maintain friendships, as an adult, as you get older? Can you guys talk about that at all?
Yeah, we were talking about this, and obviously at this stage of life, you have greater responsibilities than when you were younger. so that your time is less and less and less to do the things that, you know, are kind of fun to do to make friends, like social engagements or just, you know, time. Like obviously we both have kids, so there is a very limited time that we can even be out of the house, you know, because of naps and bedtime and different things. Yeah. So it just on a practical level, it's just you have less time, you know.
Your responsibilities as an adult, they increase, obviously. But combined with that, it's a double whammy, because if your responsibilities are increasing, and I think that we have a natural tendency to lower friendship on the priority scale.
Yeah,
so
exactly.
we're way busier now, obviously. But we made a decision that this is not as important to me anymore. This friendship, I don't value it like I used to. And I think that can come at a high cost.
Yeah. Why do you think it is important to have friendships as a friend? You know, for you guys, have you elevated that priority, or have you seen that it's something that does kind of go down as you've gotten older?
I believe that we're created for relationships. We're created for friendships. And so if we don't have that, we're kind of missing out on a huge part of what it means to just do life. You're missing out a huge component. It's not the most critical thing, but it is, man, it's up there of extreme importance is friendship.
Wow.
So yeah. And so with that, I think it's funny. Everyone's different, but on a personal level, like, I mean, I treasure friendship. I have to have friendship, and have been blessed with great friendships. I don't know what it was like for you coming into a marriage with me. Like,
well, just on that note, on our wedding day, it was so hard for him. How many groomsmen? Anyways, we had a fair amount of groomsmen, and I had to, like, I love all I love all the people that were my bridesmaids, but I definitely the pressure was on me to find more. Let's just say that.
Yeah.
And then there was people that he was like, "Oh, I really want them to be a groomsman too." And I'm like, "I just don't have any more. Like, I just don't have any more friends." And so then we made them ushers. So like Jackson has always had like the brohood around him, and it's really cool to see for for a dude. You know?
Yeah. So I love it. We love it. But culture also too. We've all gotten older, right? Like we already mentioned, responsibilities increase. We're prioritizing it less. But then with that, culture is moving in a direction where it's not like prioritizing friendship. I think the things we engage in the most are actually isolated activities. You know, me and my friend, we were talking the other day, and we're going to be the first generation of people who are in old folks' homes playing Xbox Live. You know,
that's so
you're
true.
Playing cards, you're playing chess, you're playing checkers.
Right.
You know, but they'll be like, our generation will be Xbox Live in the nursing home. You know,
Nice.
Sweet.
So we can stay home. You know, we are. iPhones came out when we were all in college.
That's right.
So I think it's a combination of things, and isolation is extremely unhealthy.
Yeah.
But I also think too, like, an important part of friendships, I have been so thankful for friendships lately. I've been thankful for the good times, right? They make the good times great, and the memories made. I think about my past birthday this year, how I had friends that were like, "We're taking you out on your birthday." Jackson offered to send him with the kids. They took me out, drove me to Orlando. Like, just creating these special memories and just the support that I get from them. I think about, we went through a miscarriage a few years ago, and just the people that loved on us and brought food and prayed for us, and these things, like, I don't take for granted. And you can't have that if you don't have friends in your life on that level, you know?
Yeah. And I think you're right on that level, you know, because you had to tell people, you know, you had a loss of a child. You know, you had to open up about things. You had to be available. You had to have the support of your spouse to take the kids. So like all those things are work, you know, and are being intentional and purposeful too.
And to that point, if I may add, I've heard people say like, well, my spouse is my friend. My spouse is my best friend, and which is great and wonderful. And like, that is absolutely true. Like, Stephanie is 100% my best friend. And so people will be like, well, so I'm good. Like, I have a friend, I've got a best friend. I'm good to go, right?
I shouldn't laugh, but that
that
blows my mind.
I know, but
that does happen. Yeah,
I do want to talk about that and bring that to the table, because I think some people will be like, oh yeah, friendship is important. I've got a friendship with my significant other, spouse, whatever it is,
sibling, even
sibling. It can be within family, whatever. Like, what is the purpose and point and benefit of growing that network beyond just, oh, I've got my spouse, I'm good to go?
Having more people with like an outside perspective, an outside perspective as far as it's not like us. It's someone, I mean, also think about if you're in a marriage, you go through some hard times, and sometimes you need a friend to talk to about that, to pray with you. I mean, there has been times where I've gone to my best friend and just had to talk with her and process things with her, and she's helped me come back to him better, because I was able to have that time with her. So that's like the first thing I think of, is just, it's healthy to have someone else other than just all like you two.
Yes.
What else do you have?
Yeah, no, I think hugely that, I mean, life's really burdensome, and it's too much pressure on your spouse to make them feel the weight of carrying every single burden you have. That's just like, they're not capable of that. I don't think that is the right way to go about it. I think it's a lot of pressure on them. So you have an opportunity to have other people in your life that carry the burden together with you. But also too, you get to carry their burden, which is more fulfilling. If you go into a friendship with a generous attitude and an attitude of giving, you are going to get blessed for that, and it's going to be extremely rewarding. There's going to be more contentment in that. And beyond that, we have blind spots, kind of like hitting on what you were saying. Is like, I mean, they're blind to me because I can't see it. So we need to invite people in our life who love us enough to tell us the truth about things we're saying, things we're doing, things, and maybe we're changing in ways that don't line up with what we say we actually value, and we can kind of hold each other accountable. So those are just a few.
Accountability is a huge one.
Huge. Yes.
And I think that then, totally. I think that then speaks to, maybe quality is the wrong word, but who you are letting into your life and who you are letting speak into your life is very important. And so it's finding that balance too of like, obviously being kind and friendly to everyone, loving everyone, being kind to everyone, but at the same time, not everyone is going to be within that circle of trust, inner circle of trust. And so I feel like there can be almost layers and levels of types of friendship. And again, we can talk more about that a little bit later when we talk about like capacity and how many friends is the right amount of friends, because we live in a world like, with social media, it's like, oh, I've got X amount of friends, I've got X amount of followers. It's like, okay, cool. But how many of those are like friends, and how do you catalog your friends, and what does friendship mean to you? And I guess honestly, that's even a question, is like, what does that mean to you? Like, what does that concept of friendship mean to you guys?
So friendship to me means having a close, trusted person. For me, a close friend of mine would be female, and I just think it's somebody that I can have a fun time with, enjoy, share life with, do fun things together. But also a really important aspect would be being able to be real with them and know that, like I said, they're trusted, they're a loyal person, a safe person.
It's interesting, as we asked the question, it makes me realize that maybe we use the word friend too loosely. Like, it's almost like, is a friend, is it simply someone who's not an enemy? Right? Like, that's not a friend.
Wow.
Like, I think on the battlefield, like, right? Like, it's they're like,
Friend
when
or
they're
foe.
examining, like, what uniform
it's not
are they
friend,
wearing?
foe, or acquaintance.
Sure, right.
Right.
So when Breighana was talking about trust, is like, man, there's many people I like and many people I appreciate.
Sure.
but I'm not going to tell
Yeah.
anyone everything, you know, as we say, you know, authentic to all, but vulnerable to just a select few.
That's good.
And so with that, I think of that verse that talks about how there's a friend that sticks closer than a brother. And it's like, to me, like, that is a friend when there's someone, they're closer than family to you. And so if it's that heavy, then maybe we're using it too loosely. And I think a lot of people call people friends that if I tell them something, it may or may not stay with them, you know, but they would still call that person a friend, which, wow, that's sad if that's the quality of the friendship and the standard they allow in their life. So, so what is friendship? It's like Breighana was saying, someone you can trust, that you can be vulnerable and authentic with.
One thing I want to say though is I feel like we are talking, like when we're answering this question, I think we're trying to talk about like those, you know, really, really close friends to us. Like I also have really amazing, what I would call like my mom friends that we meet up and we do play dates together, and they're amazing. But I don't think of them as like, they're not sticking to me closer than a brother, so to speak. But and that's okay. So I do think that, like as you guys were saying, there's like layers of friends, and that's also okay. You know?
Yeah.
And I think we're trying to answer that like what is a deep close friend mean?
And you've had your best friend Breighana for quite a few years now, but there was a time when she was that acquaintance and she was that like, let's hang out.
That's a great
point.
Great point.
So you do have to start.
It always starts that way, doesn't it?
Yeah. And I do feel like there are a lot of people in this new mom role or new parent role, and they're like, I have to find new friends that are in my season of life. And that's very daunting because they have to start in that acquaintance role. You know, date them, make sure they're safe, make sure they're gonna fall, you know, all those things, and that's very daunting.
Great point.
Very daunting, and I would have to say, some of it's paralyzing, you know, for them, and so I do think it's a good thing to define that friendship, but it does have to start someday as like a first time meeting them.
That's a great point. Because I think people have that expectation sometimes coming into friendship. They want, people really want that connection. They want that closeness. They want that trust. They want their intimacy.
Yeah.
But that takes work. That takes time. That takes intentionality to get there. And so I think sometimes we can have that unrealistic expectation of like, I want a best friend. Poof, if it doesn't happen tomorrow with this person, it's just not a good fit. I'm going to move on to the next person. And you're just going to constantly get in that cycle of disappointment and be like, oh, well,
when are
I
they
guess
going to call?
Yeah.
They think I'm weird. Like I've heard all these things and that breaks my heart because it's like, you have all these expectations. So let's kind of talk about that. Like, how do we have realistic expectations, especially in the beginning? Like, especially, I mean, think back, you know, it feels like a million years ago, but like when you were first creating those friendships, or maybe more recently, you've brought someone into that inner circle. What were some of the realistic expectations, or maybe even the unrealistic expectations you have to fight against or say, nope, that's not, I'm not going to put that on there.
For yourself and for them. Because I think sometimes you can put unrealistic 100%. Expectations on another person or put it on yourself and like, oh, I'm a bad friend if I don't do X, Y, and Z. Again, can you guys talk through like, how do you establish those realistic expectations?
If you're hearing this and you don't have it and that freaks you out, this deep friendship, is you got to give yourself so much grace and mercy.
Yes.
If you already have kids and you're already married, or are further along in that life stage, because it just reminds me as we're processing this, my best friends were made before I had kids and before I was married, because like we were young adults, still crashing at our parents' house, you know, like staying out late, you know, and so these friendships don't happen overnight. They do take time. And so if you've moved to a new location, or maybe you realize that you were in a toxic place and you got to start over, you got to give yourself grace to take the time. Because that's how, I mean, I've heard it been said that love is spelled T-I-M-E. And so with that, like, what's the expectations if I'm starting over? Well, I think that if you're already married and you have kids, so speaking to those types of people looking, I would recognize that they're not going to be able to necessarily hang out with me even once a week.
Mhm.
I think to think that someone that you've met at a park recently is all of a sudden going to be hanging out with you once a week. I think that's a lot to ask, because you got to figure they probably already have a network of friends. They probably already have a community. They probably already have a rhythm and a routine down. So I think that if you're that person trying to seek new friends, is kind of figure out what is it they're already doing in the community they're already a part of. Is there a Bible study that you can attend with them? Can you be vulnerable enough to even ask, be like, hey, like, we don't have community and we're looking for it. Can you direct us to someone or somewhere?
Yeah.
That's one thing I learned from Dave and Barb. There are the pastors over our 3-campus church. They know literally, or excuse me, thousands of people know them. And so what they've taught us is that they can't be a friend to all those people.
Right.
Yeah.
So what they've learned to do is direct them to places, and they're meeting new people and they're connecting new people and things like that.
That's
good.
So I would say get on board with what people are doing. Don't think that all of a sudden you're going to have a weekly like double date, going on after the first hang session. And yeah, go to people who might be prominent in the community, and just tell them what you need and what you're looking for. And I think that people can push you to the right place, because it's hard.
Yeah.
Hard. Like I do think of people who we have made friends with since we've had kids and since we've been married. And like it's slow, it's going, we're being intentional with it, we want it. But in 3 months, we probably only had, I would say, probably like 4 physical hangouts. We're texting, we're calling,
Sure.
But it's slow. It's slow time of life.
I think that for me on my end, and I don't mean this coming from a place of feeling like seeming like, oh, I'm so cool, I have such a full schedule and so many friends, but for a long time now, I have had pretty established friendships. So when like somebody really cool and new comes along, I've had to, for myself, have this like reset this expectation, like, oh, I am gonna hang out with them. Like, we are gonna be really good friends. And I have to like stop myself and be like, okay, well, how much time can I really give to this person, and just be honest with them. And so something I've found myself doing lately, and you maybe touched on this a little bit with your answer, but if there's like somebody new that we connect and I can just tell like we want to get together, I just invite her to something I am doing already. And so usually it is like something with other moms or something at the church. So yeah, you did hit on it. But it seems to be also what I think is like a good indicator for them. I'm not saying like, hey, come over to my house, or hey, let's do coffee, just us. Because in this season, it's really hard for me to be one-on-one without like any of my children sometimes. So it's like, hey, like come join me and my kids, and so the expectation I feel like I'm sort of setting it is like, hey, we can get to know each other like in a group setting first, even before, a one-on-one. And I think that for me, because like you were saying, Stephanie, how did some of these deep friendships form? Well, I think back to like me and my best friend when we first met, it was a mutual, like you were friends with her husband, and we all got together many, many times in a big group setting and hung out. And then from there, just hit it off. And, it is kind of like a little relationship. You're like, oh, do we have chemistry?
Yeah.
Like for me, a big thing is this person nice? Like I can't be friends with someone who's like, kind of overpowering or has a very strong opinions on everything. Like that's just not like my person.
Right.
I almost feel like you graduate to like, oh, okay, we can hang out one-on-one now and it's not awkward, like let's go for a walk on the causeway. And then eventually work up to like we're just staring at each other, and I know that sounds really intense, like lay it out like that, but that's almost how my friendships have grown deeper. It's like you start off kind of lighthearted, then you get more deeper. Not that every friendship lands at that close friendship.
That's right.
Sure.
But if someone is looking for that,
Yeah.
Well, and Justin, it reminds me of something you were even saying is, in order to have friends, you got to be friendly. I've had people come up to me and complain about lack of friends. Like, well, I went to this place and I didn't make any friends. It's like, well, you went once and you didn't go back.
Exactly.
And so I would say, we're talking about expectations is don't think it's going to be a home run. Your first at bat in pursuing this. So man, I would just encourage people, man, fight discouragement in your seeking, but above all else, don't give up. I think I think that we're capable of giving up, and I would be really bummed for somebody if they did.
I think that there's a lot to be said about just consistency and showing up and
yes, come on.
Not having the expectation. I mean, I used to go into relationships being like, you're going to be my bridesmaid. Like I would get so over the top expectations on people. And it wasn't until, maybe 7 or 8 years ago, actually Dave and Barb introduced me to my first real, their daughter-in-law, my first real adult friend. And that was life-changing. But I'll never forget, someone came up to me when we were leading our small group and said, I'm looking for a friend, but I need someone who's going to give me 80% because I only have 20% to give. And it was like, whoa, and it was very shocking to me that she was that direct and that aware of herself. And I remember thinking, oh, I have to be that 80%. I'm the leader. I'm this. I'm this. And somebody very wisely told me, like, no, you don't. That person might need to assess what they can give and what is realistic. And that was the first time in my life that I realized I had unreal expectations of friends. And I thought that friends automatically meant but Anna Green Gables and what's her name? Bosom, oh, we have the same brain wave and we show up on each other's doorsteps and weep, and that's not always what it looks like, It's not, maybe there are seasons for that.
Sure.
But it could just be, hey, come and hang out with us and just showing up, I think is huge. Yeah. Really good point.
Well, I think that's interesting. You're talking about having realistic expectations of friendship and things like that. Because for me, I'm very much the opposite of Stephanie. When Stephanie is so good at putting herself out there, engaging with people, being very intentional about that. I am a lot more reserved. Stephanie is a innocent until proven guilty person. I'm a guilty until proven innocent kind of person. But I think within making friends and, establishing realistic expectations, I know for me, modeling is a big part of that. And I think how people are raised or where they've come from or what they've seen other people do, what they've seen adults around them do, becomes kind of a big part potentially. And in one way or the other, you could adapt that style or you could pendulum to the other side. Again, it's not that you're locked into what you've seen and experienced, but that is a big part. And for me, it was that friendship wasn't really valued. It wasn't seen as important, or the definition of friendship was very surface level. And it stayed very surface level because once you start really sharing your flaws and your struggles and what's going on underneath, that's weakness. Obviously that's then going to be now you have compromised the image that you have laid out. You have lost respect. You have lost integrity. And now that person is going to use that information against you and yada, yada, the list goes on and on. So how would you say for people who haven't had a healthy model of what friendship is and what it looks like and how to build it, and they may honestly be coming with a lot of baggage because of their past and what they've seen, where would you encourage them to begin? Just where to start in growing in that area of friendship and building friendships?
I think that's an extremely fair place to be if someone hasn't had it modeled well for them. Accept that. That's okay. Not a lot of people have had the luxury of it being modeled well. So, but with that, I think that if you desire friendship, which we want you to desire friendship because it's critical for your soul and for your well-being, then there's a lot of practical content out there that tells you how to do it. I think we have to just look at it, examine it, and then apply it to our life. Man, some things I'm going to just instill into my children are listen and ask questions.
That's a great one.
Love that.
Ask questions. I heard the illustration in regards to dating, but it applies even more true for friendship of there's two different people. There's two different dates. The first date, they made the person feel like the most interesting person in New York City. The second date, they realized they went out with the most interesting person in New York City. Which one was more charming? It's the one that made you feel interested. And we should want to bring the best out of people. We should want to hear their story.
That's right.
People are extremely fascinating if we take time to listen to them and care for them and have compassion for them. Yeah. So I would say learn some critical things and some good questions to ask.
Yeah.
What do you love?
I love that.
What are you excited about? What are you passionate about? So yeah, get a few good questions and roll with it and see where it goes.
I believe making friends is a muscle. And I believe that the more you do it, the more intentional you are, and like you try to bring the stakes a little lower, you know, like, oh, I have this one chance, and if I blow it, I'm done. Like, no, don't look at it like that. You know, maybe even go to a Chick-fil-A or like a park outside of your, you know, immediate area and practice on some moms, you know, or something like that. Like, and just do it. The more you do it, the more comfortable it will be, the more easy it will be. I just cannot like stress that enough.
Yeah.
If you have let that muscle, like, you know, get floppy, like strengthen it up and
Absolutely.
just
that's so
have
good.
your canned questions. I love that. I think that's such a really easy thing to do. Yeah, that's great.
It's so easy to, like Stephanie was saying, be daunted by that. And it can be a very daunting experience, especially for those who, again, I'm going to identify with, who are more introverted, who are more...
What?
Yeah, who knew? Who are more reserved. And it's not our default state to just walk up to someone and say, hi, my name is so-and-so. What's your name? That is your default state. And you do it, and you do it so well. Jackson, I feel like that's your default state. Like, I feel like you are so good at that.
You make everybody
Bree,
feel like
you
they're
have
your
made
friend.
yourself be good at that, but I feel like you and I tend to be more the introverted
It is out of my
side.
comfort zone. Yeah.
Yeah. Can we talk a little bit about, again, I'm just going to use the word capacity for lack of a better word, but because everyone's different, is there like does every person have a capacity of friendship? And like, how
I think
do
their
you...
wedding party.
Yeah, I think that's a perfect example. Like, capacity. Is there such a thing?
No, I think that's a super good question. And it brings me back to what we started off with, which is like, I just thinking about in this stage of life, kind of like, why is it, or why can't it be difficult to have adult friendships? The capacity question is something that might change too. Of you might have a capacity when you're a young adult to have X amount of really close friends, or this amount of, or seeing them once a week, or having people over more. And then the capacity might change as you enter in a different season. Maybe your workload is just taking more of your time. Maybe it is kids. Maybe it is you're dealing with something else, you know, or for whatever it is. Personally, what I found is my capacity sort of it kind of ebbs and flows, you know, but I'm the classic, like, I've got probably 2 to 3 close friends, I feel like, at a time that I'm like kind of seeing consistently, talking with. We really know what's going on in each other's life. And once it gets past that, it seems like I just miss the mark a little bit, and have to have grace for myself, because it's like, then I feel like the bad friend, like, oh, I'm not checking in on them. But it's like, you know, it can just be hard. You're playing like text tag. It's like, oh, I'm so sorry that I didn't respond to you yesterday. Like a whole day went by and I didn't respond to you, you know?
Yeah.
And obviously people have grace for that. But I do think that as I'm sharing about me, I'm sharing it with the purpose of saying, like, that's me, and that's not Jackson, and that's not you guys, maybe, I don't know, but
three's a lot.
3's a lot. Well, I'm like that introvert, extrovert, introvert. I don't even know. So and maybe that's like that introverted side coming out a little bit, but if it's more than that, it can feel exhausting for me. So that's what I'll start with.
Yeah. It's hard because there's like, we know a lot of cool people. You guys, there's a lot of cool people out there. And we can't be best friends with all of them, nor should we. So yeah, I think that three could be a lot to manage. 5 is a whole lot to manage. So I think it just depends on the person. Like, are you a person that I'm trying to make sure I don't have too many friends, because then I'm not giving the ones I have the attention they need. But then there's some people that like, whoa, that's not my struggle at all. Like capacity, I'm lonely. Like I really wish I had that problem, you know?
Yeah.
If you have one, that's awesome.
Yeah.
That's really, really awesome. And then, you know, that you have that inner circle, and then you kind of have one more extended circle, and then you have one beyond that.
That's fair. Yeah.
So yeah, and I would say this is the Intentional Thriver podcast. Yeah, you got to look at your rhythm and see how it fits, see how it works, and then go from there.
I love what you said about seasons, because Breighana, you and I were in a season where we were close, right? We saw each other on a weekly basis, and
we did. Yeah.
We're not in that season anymore. I love you so dearly.
I love you.
But yeah, and I think when we hang out, it's like we go back there, but I don't feel any ill will when I don't hear from you.
I admit, I am not the best at long distance friendships. That could probably be a whole nother thing too.
It could be, yeah. Anyway, let's talk about the circle of friends, because this was actually really, as an extrovert maybe, this was really life-changing for me, because I could not figure out why I was texting people and digging into people and giving to people and not feeling the same back. And it was very, and that goes with the expectations thing. And it was very, very painful for me, you know, because I felt like there was something wrong with me, and I felt like I was the problem, and I felt like I was weird. And so, hello, introverts, extroverts have these same insecurities. Like, come on.
What?
So I know, right? Like, and it was really bothering me, especially when I moved away, even though I knew, you know, but I was starting over, and I was scared because friendships used to be very, very hard for me. Before I realized everybody's weird, and it's okay.
It's true.
So, you know,
I helped her understand that.
Thank you. No, but somebody pointed that out to me, and I realized I had mixed match expectations. I was someone's third circle, and they were my inner circle. And so somebody recommended that I did the circles, had 3 people in the middle, 3 people, you know, on each level, or I have a couple more on the outside, but on the third level, which is still someone I would text on a weekly basis. But anyway, it helped me so much. And then they said, sit on it for like a week or 2 and see if it's accurate, you know, see, are they people that are texting you back right away? See if that's where it should be. And then I went to those people and I said, hey, you know what? You're so special to me. I see you as a middle, like you're in my middle. Like those friends in the middle, I showed them like my diagram.
Wow.
You know,
I love you.
I know. I love my journal.
Can you talk a little bit more about like what each of those circles represent?
Yeah.
Like
so when I see them, I see like the middle ones. I'm talking to them almost daily, at least weekly.
Wow.
Like we are jiving. I could call them at any time and like, hey, how you doing? The second level is like, I love them. They're close to me, but I'm talking to them more like every other week, 2 weeks.
And this is like aside from spouse.
Oh no, spouse isn't anywhere near that.
She didn't talk to me. I guess I didn't make it in the first 3 rings.
That's amazing.
I love you, but no.
You're there for one thing and one thing only.
No, but I think that's a really good point to bring up, that like, because they can be like, oh, well, my spouse is my center. Yes, obviously, duh. You wouldn't, you know, you shouldn't be married to that person if they're not your best friend. Get that off the table.
Yeah. Or make them like work on that.
Well, yeah, like you have to be intentional about building that friendship and that relationship. Well, and I mean, but that's true of any friendship.
Yeah.
That's true of any relationship between two human beings.
Right.
It's not like everything is always,
Yeah.
you know, bubblegum and raindrops.
Right.
Like there is going to be disagreement. There is going to be tension. I mean, you obviously have to work through that, but
And
but
then,
I'm sorry, please continue.
And then your third ring would be, you know, people that you could call or text at a drop of the hat, but are maybe not somebody that you would intentionally go to on a more regular basis.
Sure.
So, and that doesn't mean like the people outside of those rings, like Breighana, you're so special to me, and like you said, it's seasoned. So I'm not gonna say this is my friendship rings. I'm gonna stick to this till the cows come home. Like, no, I don't think I've ever said that phrase till the cows come home. I don't know what that came from.
Now we have it recorded.
Yes. But like you're reassessing that, you know. But it really gave me so much freedom to be like, oh, okay, they're now in my second tier ring. They're not ticked if I, you know, don't text back right away. They're okay. Like it gave me a lot less pressure on it. And then I could really focus in on my inner rings.
I love that. And I think, again, following along like the idea of seasons and friendship and having realistic expectations of that. Like, Brie, like you were saying with long distance, it's like, oh man, we're not going to get to hang out as much. We're not going to be able to interact as much. That's okay. Sure, that's okay. And that doesn't mean that like Stephanie's saying, we don't love you guys. We don't love hanging out with you guys, that we don't have that friendship. It's just, it's a different season, and that friendship has changed with that season, and that's okay.
I think after airing that out with you guys, that's really good clarity on the expectation side of friendships. We don't need to put a ton of pressure on it. We in that moment, like Justin, like you're a guy that maybe only two other people can get a certain sound of laugh out of me. Remember when we did that parenting class together?
Yes.
Like, there's something about your sense of humor. You're one of three people that gets a specific.
Wow, that is a very high honor.
That is.
But to that point, though, is like we won't talk in forever. We're gonna hop on the phone and just be, hey, my cup's like more full, just simply from getting a talk from you, and we don't have to talk again for however long, you know,
a couple years,
you know? Right. So I got two questions for you guys.
Oh man.
So you guys uprooted from our community.
Yeah.
How would you guys advise people who haven't counted the costs on, like, you guys had community, you had the three circles, you know, you had it here, and you started over. Like I've lived in Melbourne, Florida for 34 years. I'm 34 years old, you know? So it's like I mean, I went to college for 2 years, but that was Daytona Beach, right?
Sure. Yeah.
Do you guys see people willing to think this is super easy? What's it been like for you guys starting over?
It would have been so much easier for me just to be like, whatever, it's all good. Someone should talk to me. Someone should come to me and say, like, if this was really a friendly place, they would be the ones coming up to me being like, hey, do you have a friend? You know, laying all this stuff out there. And but I mean, again, I think that can kind of become that mindset. And then you kind of use that as a little bit of an excuse to not put yourself out there, to not think like, oh man, because you don't necessarily immediately feel the impact of the absence of community or friends in your life. You know, it's like, you know, I'm a strong, resilient human being. And I think, again, that's the entire premise of this podcast is thriving versus surviving. And you can survive without friends. Human beings are incredibly resilient human beings. You absolutely can live your life. You can make it through. You can survive. But you are missing out on such a huge opportunity to live a thriving life if you have a strong community and friendship in your life and be intentional about that.
I loved what Jackson said. Have questions, like ask people
that's
about
huge.
themselves. And then I think being vulnerable is huge. I think I have been hurt a lot by friends. Like if you ask my mom, she would say I just got constantly hurt through high school. It didn't stop me. So I don't even think it's the hurting element. I think it's there's so much joy in friendship, and I've experienced that. And what is enough that you can give without, you know, maybe feeling exposed, you know, overly.
Sometimes you have to have the expectation that you will get hurt. in a friendship, in a relationship at some point.
Yeah.
You know, that people are people, and
sucks.
And it's so hard, and it's so frustrating.
And you might do the hurting
And
too.
Yes.
So.
Yeah. So it's like checking yourself to make sure you're not the friend doing that, number one. But number two, like, don't give up on that. Don't give up on the importance of friendship because of a bad experience from that. Because some people listening to this may be currently in that position of like, I have been so hurt from a friendship. I have been so hurt from being vulnerable with someone who did turn around and use that against me and stab me in the back or leak that to other people. And so again, just as a word of encouragement, being someone who is very cautious of that and who has experienced that like, I have had to learn I've had to learn to love again. Like, I've had to learn to trust again and to not with that person, but like, you know, obviously they do more damage than just toward them. They do it toward, you know, multiple people in multiple areas. And so you really go on the defensive and look through life through just a different lens and a different filter. But
I think it's really good to talk about the energy givers and energy takers of friendships. I would tell people when I was in discipleship lab way back that if you have an energy taker in your life, you need to have like 3 energy givers to like refill. And this was before kids, so that was, you know, something different. But I do think that you have to have a gauge on your friends. And I think that's a really good self-awareness, Breighana, that you were leaving and saying, oh, I'm tired. And I do feel like introverts have a little more of a gauge on that than maybe extroverts do, which is a blessing. Because normally extroverts, I think, leave and are like, what's wrong with me? Like, and they don't take it internally as much as maybe you guys do. And I'm speaking as an extreme extrovert. So, and Jackson, I think you jive with me on this. And so I think that there's definitely an element of saying goodbye to friends. And that's a really hard place to be. I have 2 friends right now who have had to say goodbye to long-term friendships. And have you found in your experience like healthy ways to step away from friendship
that's a good
not
question.
I think there has to, especially if they're in your inner circle, I think there has to be a level of communication of, hey, this was not a healthy thing that you did, or because that is the iron sharpening iron, right? Like that is what we're called to do, but that's really hard to do. And my one friend sent me like multiple texts of what they were going to send this friend. And I was like, oh, don't send that. No, you know, and they're like, okay, I just needed to get it out of my system. I'm like, okay, that's fine. And I really appreciate that they bounced it off me and stuff. But both of them had to confront that friend. But maybe it's not your inner circle. Maybe it's a little further out. What are ways that you have seen healthy to step away from a draining friendship?
That's good.
Yeah, I don't know if I have the healthy answer. I think that
it's unhealthy.
Yeah, right.
Yeah,
what's the wrong way to do it?
No, I just like seen relationships end when the dynamic of the relationship changes. Like there was a capacity, we had chemistry, and when whatever that connection is taken away, and now we don't have a reason to connect anymore. Like that's kind of bizarre, but I kind of just say, okay, well, that was actually more shallow than I realized. So I don't need to go recover that necessarily.
That's a good point. Yeah.
So that would be like why I see like my relationships and people are a really big part of my life.
No, I think that there is an element of just grieving. I think that's so huge.
That's a great point.
And maybe it is more of a
grieving and closure and understanding that season has come to an end. And like you said, it's okay to grieve that loss.
Yeah.
And you know, and rejoice in and be happy in the memories of the good within that. But also knowing that it's okay to let that go. And
you know,
that's just part of life. That's part of growing. And hopefully we're doing that. Hopefully that is the goal, is that we're all growing to be better, happier, healthier people.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah.
And as hard as it is to say, sometimes that means letting go or changing the dynamic of certain relationships and friendships.
Yeah.
With all that said, the last question that I have for you guys, our podcast is called The Intentional Thriver. What does that mean to you guys? What does that mean to intentionally thrive in your life?
Well, to me, it's just like getting a hold of these certain disciplines in my life. Again, being intentional, meaning like I'm putting forth a consistent effort, and disciplines as in something simple from like waking up when I want to wake up and moving my body in a way that's going to like make me healthier. Spiritual disciplines I want to do. So being intentional with those, because laying out what areas do I think are important in my life, being disciplined in them. And we were talking about like rhythms, so to speak, just having good rhythms. And if I get a good rhythm, I feel good. I feel like it just, everything feels good. If I have something, like it's just easier once I have a rhythm, if that makes sense, and have my disciplines going strong. So yes, for me to thrive, also like being in a good place with this guy and friends. I mean, I think it's funny. Friends are a huge part of that as well. Like I have to have my support people and making memories and all that kind of stuff.
Yeah, for sure. I think it's when I feel secure with my t-shirt off at a swimming pool.
Yeah, obviously.
There it is.
Which hasn't happened for about 24 years.
You'll get there.
I'm trending the right direction. Don't give up.
Oh my gosh, don't give up.
I agree with Breighana said. It's when my rhythms are lined up with the things I value.
Yeah.
And I think that is a really hard battle to fight when you have two little babies. It's kind of just a tough season.
Yeah.
To have like the idealistic rhythm, but also just knowing there is seasons.
Yes.
And knowing like, we're going to get there and we're going to take the wins where we can get them. But we are going to work towards rhythms and values being like lined up together.
Yeah.
So good.